Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to RobMotive. So today we're out here cruising around in my new 2025 Toyota Tacoma TRD Off Road, and I thought I'd do a little comparison, I guess, or my impressions anyway, of how I feel about this truck as compared to the Sport trim level. So we're going to jump right in. First off is that hood scoop. I'm a fan of the hood scoop. I do like the looks of it. But I've got to say, I prefer what I have now for two reasons. One, the view isn't obstructed at all by the hood scoop. I mean, it was there, you could see it, you couldn't quite see over the front of the truck. That's gone now. Secondly, this hood is much more rigid, if you will. It doesn't move or bounce up and down. I'm driving right now in some pretty good wind and some bumps, as you might be able to tell, and it's not moving at all. I can always see the hood bouncing around in the Sport. If that bothers you, might be something that you don't want to get into. Go with the TRD Off Road. Next up, another difference, the glove box. If you'd seen any of my earlier videos, you know I had a little movement problem with the glove box. It would bounce a little bit until I did a little bit of a mod to it. Kind of drove me nuts. I could see it out of the corner of my eye going over bumps and things, and I could also hear the door kind of slamming back and forth on the edges. When I say slam, it's just a sound. I mean, it wasn't some obnoxious, crazy noise. But anyway, this truck does not do that at all. It's nice and tight. So I don't know if I just had a truck that had maybe some little issue. I don't think so, because other people had talked about it as well. I think Toyota has changed the little prongs that it goes up against when you shut it. They made it more rigid, more firm. So we don't have that issue anymore. I like that. The biggest, or one of the biggest differences between this truck and my last one, and I know it's not true on every trim level, is auto stop. This truck does not have auto stop. I have heard that the reason my last one did is because it was a two-wheel drive. This is a 4x4. I've also heard that it's in the Sport, but not the off-road and the other higher trim levels. I don't know if that's true or not. I really haven't looked at every one to know. If you know, leave a comment down below. I'd be curious to find out myself. Is it just the Sport line, or is it just the two-wheel drive? I don't know. But I love not having it. I don't have to remember to push the button because it always drove me nuts. And I'm sure if there aren't already, there'll be some aftermarket plug-in devices to override that. So if you have one and it's driving you crazy, you can go ahead, I'm sure, down the road and get rid of that feature. There's a company called, I believe it's Auto Stop Eliminator or something like that. They make a device for Jeeps and many other vehicles that kind of bypasses that feature. So just look for it if that bothers you. The truck itself, the ride quality, I would say it is squishier, technical term, squishier in the TRD Off-Road than it is in the Sport. And that would make sense because a Sport is supposed to be a firmer ride, right? That's part of being a Sport, no matter what vehicle you're in, right? I mean, jump in a sports car and you're gonna have a lot more road feel than you would in just a regular car. It's kind of the same thing between the two different trim levels of the Tacoma. Now, it's not horribly different. So if that's not something that bothers you, it's probably not gonna bother you no matter which version you get, but it is noticeable if you pay attention. The handling of the truck, otherwise, everything else is the same. I don't really notice any big difference. It handles the same way as the Sport did. There is something else that I've noticed in this truck, and that is the turbo whir. I noticed it when I was driving it home, and it was in rain, so there was a lot of road noise and stuff too, you know, the water and the tires and all that, but I could still hear that whir coming from the turbo as I was kind of going between different speeds. You know, when you get a brand new vehicle, you're not supposed to drive it at one set speed for a long time, right? And I had about a 40-minute drive to get home, so I was trying to vary the speeds. And every time I would go from a flat line, let's call it, to faster, give it some more gas, I would hear the turbo whir. I don't know if you guys are going to hear it as we're driving around. Probably not, because I am kind of staying at the same speed. But nonetheless, it does seem to be more prevalent in this truck, and I like it. I think it's pretty cool. I dig it. It almost sounds to me like I'm driving a semi or something. You ever been on the freeway and you're beside a semi truck, and when they give it the gas, the diesel, you can kind of hear that. That's my impression of the gas, right? Or the diesel as the engine kicks in a little more. It kind of reminds me of that. Now, it certainly isn't as prevalent as that. It's not like you're going to be driving this truck and close your eyes and think you're in a semi or something. But nonetheless, it's pretty cool. I dig it. And I have heard that if you go with some of the aftermarket air intakes, you can actually get a little more sound out of it. You can hear it a little bit louder. And that's something I think I'm going to explore, because if I can increase that noise just a bit, I don't want anything obnoxious, and I don't think it would be obnoxious, but I would like to hear it a little bit more, maybe just driving around at slower speeds as opposed to having to be on the freeway and I guess fluctuate between different speeds. That's pretty cool. The last thing in this truck, well, there's two more things. One, the verdict is still out. Am I still having the seat lowering and raising problem? You know, it has manual seats, which is fine for me. You know, automatic seats, I don't really care. But I still slide in and out of the truck the same way. I have the same height lift on this truck as I did the previous one, which is a level lift in the front. Love the setup, by the way. I had it done at Toyota, so it's warranted under Toyota and installed by Toyota Techs. The best of all worlds, I think. But I still slide in and out of the truck, which means my rear end still pushes down on that lever when I get out. I haven't really noticed it as much in this truck, but I'm sure it's got to be happening because it's still in the same place. Toyota didn't move it. I really do think that they should. We'll see. Lastly is the screen, the 14-inch screen. I love the way that it looks, but if I'm being honest, functionally, there's really no big difference between what it can do and what the smaller screen can do. It's simply bigger. One thing that I didn't know, though, when I got this truck is that when you go to the 14-inch, apparently, you get navigation. It's part of the deal, I guess. I have it. Nice big screen. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Tesla that I have. Not quite as big as that screen, but the setup, the look and all of that, and I really like that in the Tesla, so it works out well for me. Otherwise, there really are no big differences. I mean, yeah, the setup, the tuning of the suspension, as Toyota says, is a little bit different because it's a different trim level. But the general basic design of the truck, the look of the gauge cluster, where the controls are, is really pretty much the same. We still have the Tacoma lettering across the glove box area, the little shelf in there. The seats are identical to what I had before. Everything else really looks pretty much the same. Leave a comment. Let me know if you've maybe had both trim levels, or if you're in the market. What are you looking at between the Sport and the TRD Off Road? I'd be curious to know. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.